What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben, and welcome back to another episode here on the VJVE Group Build, hosted by HobbyLink International. We're jumping in today, guys, on our Fiat G.55 by Special Hobby. This is the Series 0 aircraft, and this is going to be a lot of fun today, guys, because we're going to be trying to detail up the inside of the cockpit. I don't have any paint yet, so we'll go ahead and hit paint next episode, but today I really want to focus on adding wires and getting everything looking kind of busy in there. Now, the kit here comes with actually two different fuselages. We have a set of two each here. Now, I'm not sure really what the difference is between these two fuselage sides. If you look at them side by side and really kind of compare them, there's a slight difference in the rear tail, but everything else looks about the same. Same panel lines, same details, so I'm not really sure why we have two separate ones, except for that rear tail. Like I said, it's a little bit of a different shape. Everything else, though, looks about the same. I don't know if that's the way it is in real life, but let's go ahead and just go with it. Now we're going to go ahead and use some 0.3mm solder, and we're going to start adding in some pipes here on the sidewalls of the cockpit. We're going to clean up the insides, glue them down. Then we'll be able to drill some holes and string some wire and see how we do. So let's go ahead and kick it into high gear and get this thing rolling. All right, everybody, we are back, and as you can see, we've done a nice job, at least I think so, of detailing the cockpit. So you can see here we have a lot of wires coming out of that fuse box. We have some other wires here and there. I've tried to kind of drape them naturally around the different stringers and inside detail. I don't know if it really comes across, but I like how it looks. Other side as well, we have a lot of piping in there. I really wanted to add in some detail and some action to it. I don't know how much you're going to really be able to see, but we're going to try it out. I think it'll really pull it together once we go ahead and paint it. And then we add some of that, to me, a panel line wash. That's really going to make everything pop. That's going to be cool. We're going to go ahead and move over, though, to the bottom of the cockpit. that cockpit floor. And what I want to do is clean up everything, take off some of these injection molds and all of that. It should just fit right up and sit flush against the actual sidewall. I don't know how it's going to be when we actually close the fuselage up. We'll test fit that before we get to that part, but I think it's going to fit nicely. I don't think we'll have any trouble with that. But anyway, let's go ahead and start by installing some of the parts and pieces, like the control column. Now this is one of those parts we have to go ahead and clean up because there's a little bit of a seam line that runs pretty much the length of the entire control column. I'm going to go ahead and take my hobby knife, we're going to sand it down, scrape it off, then we'll glue it down to the fuselage floor, and we'll see what happens. Now the one thing about these limited run kits is sometimes the parts and pieces don't quite line up very well. You have to do a little bit of work here and kind of finagle things to get into position, but once you have them in there, we'll be good to go. With our control column all nicely cleaned up, let's go ahead and glue it down here to the bottom of the floor. And I think we should be in good condition to move on to the next stage. Yep, it just fits right down here. There's a little bit of a notch that goes right around one of these stringers that runs across the floor. Once that is good, we're going to glue it down. I'm just going to make sure it's positioned nicely. There's actually two other locating, tabs that we need to go ahead and make sure are nicely secured down. Plus there's a center one around that stringer. And then there's a final front kind of leg that kind of comes off of that and glues down to the pedestal where the seat is going to be attached. Once we have that nicely glued, we'll give a little bit of pressure, make sure it tacks up. And then I think we have to go ahead and add some photo etch as well. Just to give you an idea about what I'm trying to achieve, and I'm going to be trying to add in a lot of this detail. If you can see here, there's this little cylinder that sits to the right of the actual cockpit chair. I don't know what that is, but there's pipes coming out of it. I'm assuming it's some form of oxygen or compressed air. So we're going to try to add that into our version. Now to do that, we're going to go ahead and take a piece of sprue. We're going to shave it down to about the correct length. Then we'll round out the edges of it, and then we'll taper the front of it. Once we have that all nicely squared away, we'll drill a hole in the center of that, and we'll feed our 0.3mm solder in there to act as the piping. Here we go. We also have to add in one other piping that goes along the very top of that, but I think this actually looks pretty neat. Now, I don't know what it does, but I've seen it on a couple of different references. It might not even go in the Series 0. I don't really know, but I'm going to go ahead and use it anyway because it looks cool, and all the references I've found show this kind of canister, so I'm good with it. We also have one more piece of wire I want to go ahead and put in there. So let's string that, and we'll move on to the next stage. Now, once we have this all kind of buttoned up, it should fit right up against that side wall here. And let's go ahead and give it a little test fit, just like that. Oh yeah, that looks cool. Just enough action going on in there. I think it's going to be really neat once we paint. We give it a wash. It's going to look great. Now let's go ahead and move on there to the photo etch. Now there's a lot of photo etch that goes into this cockpit. We are actually not going to be adding the levers and dials right now. Once this is all nicely done and glued, then we'll go ahead and come back and we'll add in the dials, we'll add in the front instrument panels, and finally we'll add in all the little levers. This piece right here is a very long strip of photo etch, and I'm pretty sure that these are the rudder control cables. I've got them all nicely folded up, so what we're going to do is we're going to glue them down to where they should go here on the cockpit floor. Now we have to go ahead and position that over top of this control column. And it's a very specific kind of layout we need to go ahead and match up. So drop a little bit of super glue here. We're going to move these rudder cables right up to the front here, right there. Now we'll give that a little bit of time to tack up, press it down, make sure it's not going to go anywhere, and then install the actual rudder pedals themselves on top of that. It's kind of like a bar that goes across there. Let's go ahead and get that and add that to it. This goes right over top of that. We don't have any straps or anything to put on right yet, but we might have some later on. If not, we'll scratch build some. Make sure this is nicely glued down, a little bit of super glue, because again, we're actually gluing this down to the metal. We have to use super glue to make sure everything is nice and solid. So I'm going to take my custom applicator, drop a little bit right here in the back, drop a little bit in the front too. We'll have that nicely dialed in. This is really coming along. I haven't run into any issues really with this kit so far. Everything seems to fit together nicely. I do have to do a little bit more sanding with this kit than say I would with a Tamiya or a Hasegawa kit, but so far this is a lot of fun. Now let's go ahead and put that off to the side to dry, and then we're going to come back and we're going to start on some of the wings. So while all those parts dry off camera here, we're going to shift over to the wings and we're going to check the fit between the top and the bottom, just how they kind of fit together and how they sandwich down on top of each other. I want to make sure that there aren't going to be any issues. We can get everything lined up. So let's go ahead and cut off the tops of the wings, and then we'll be placing them down and we'll test fit them. So let's go ahead and test fit here on one of the sides. We're going to go with the left side first and get those lined up. I can already see that we have to go ahead and do a little bit of surgery here. We're going to have to queue up a time lapse and sand down the tops of the wheel wells. They just sit a little bit too proud, which then pushes the top of the wing up a little bit. So we are either going to have a huge gap on the front or a huge gap on the back. So we can't have that. Let's queue up that time lapse and bring everything down just a little bit and get everything sandwiched together. All right, everybody, we are back and we have done a ton of sanding here on the tops of the wheel wells. They are nicely sanded down. We took a lot of plastic off there, but we needed to go ahead and do that on the tops of the wheel wells and the underside of the wing in order for everything to go ahead and close down so we don't have any gaps on the leading or trailing edges of the wings. Mission accomplished. So next time we're going to have to come on back and add in the inserts, but I want to make sure that those are correct and get a little bit of references before I go ahead and push forward. We've done a lot of work on the fuselage cockpit. We added in all those wires, and I think that looks really neat. I like how it's kind of flowing together. Other side as well, a lot of cables glued in, ready for paint. We also then worked on the cockpit floor. We added in that little cylinder. We added in some more wires. We added in the photo etch, and then glued everything down. And I think we are really good to go ahead and call it quits for today. So until our next episode, everybody, thank you so much for watching. You know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool, and we'll see you back here on the next episode of the VJVE Group Build hosted by HobbyLink International. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you soon.